before we can get started at looking at mechanisms individually, today we're going to go through some basics and we're going to talk through the different parts that would be used and what you guys would have been seeing within the classroom. I still want to go through building basics and things like that. In your crossword, you should have figured out that one across was mechanism. So when we're talking about a mechanism, we're talking about something being part of a machine. That machine can be hand powered or it can be powered with a motor, which is going to use programming. And regardless of what type of system, whether it's a mechanical system, which is hand powered, or an automated system, which is powered with a motor, you are going to have a lot of these basic parts, and they are going to hold together two or more parts that are kind of going to serve in a chain reaction. So one part is going to be your input, and it causes something else to move either in a line or it may be moving in a rotary position, which is in a circle. So some of these basic parts that we are going to be utilizing through our videos to look at the mechanisms are bolts. Bolts are similar to the idea of a screw. They're going to hold something in place, but notice they have the flat end on them because they don't need to actually puncture a surface and go in. So we're just going to be using those to hold together. So we would put that through our mechanical pieces. And on the other side, we're going to use a keep nut. It has a little skirted side, which you see the arrow pointing to. That skirted side goes up against the metal. It kind of helps grip it in place. But we put that on the other side of the bolt so that it will hold something, pieces together that we want to see. Bearing flats are going to be used, and again, I've got an arrow pointing at the gripping pieces. Those gripping pieces would go against the metal plates. And we're going to use these anytime that we put our shaft or our axle through so that it basically helps to stabilize it. Okay. To hold those in place, we're going to use these push rivets. The push rivets have both the nail piece and the sleeve. They have to go together, but they will pop through on the opposite side of your push rivet. So you always, or on the opposite side, sorry, of your bearing flat. So we always want to have the bearing flat on one side, and then we would have the push rivet sandwiched from the other side. So there will be another metal piece in between the bearing flat and our push rivet. And a lot of these pieces will make a lot more sense as we start to look at the mechanisms this week. Spacers are going to be used for exactly what the name says. They're going to be used to space one item out from another. Standoffs are going to help two pieces stand apart. Where the arrows are pointing, it's threaded, so your bolts can actually thread directly into those. They kind of serve, if you think about like the legs of your table, these are like the legs of the table. We would have your tabletop on one end and then the floor would be on the other, and it would be holding it in place standing off of it. These are the shafts, which are going to hold our different gears and our different sprockets. Again, those are the similar idea of an axle, and they are going to be basically what we use to allow pieces to interact with each other. The biggest idea with the shaft is you will be making it into a bridge rather than a teeter-totter. Okay, this is something I would have said often in class while you were building. A bridge is going to have supports in at least two places. So think about any kind of normal bridge. You're going to have on one side the legs of the bridge going down, and then on the other side. So it's supported in two ways. If you think about a teeter-totter, it's going to be supported only in one place, right in the center. So it would rock back and forth. That kind of instability is not good in our mechanisms. It would allow things to not thread together. So the key part with shafts is that you need to know that it is always going to be stabilized in two or more areas. Putting a shaft through one metal piece is not going to be enough to be stable. So remember, again, two or more places to be stabilized. Shaft collars, there are two forms. We have the black one on the right side here, which is the rubber shaft collar. This pushes straight into place. It allows you basically to thread something on to those shafts and it doesn't move back and forth. We also have metal shaft collars. These have a tiny set screw in them. So you would basically have pushed this tiny set, you would have twisted with a screwdriver, this tiny set screw until it pinches the shaft in place and then it doesn't slide off of there. But both serve the same purpose. Shaft collars are meant to hold things on so that it can stay in place where you put it. Our last item that we use the most are our Allen wrenches. They're also called hex keys, H-E-X. Okay, so they're called hex keys or Allen wrenches. And essentially those are like tiny screwdrivers. They're used interchangeably with our screwdrivers within the classroom. Okay, so go back in and review these different pictures and what I've talked about with these, and then answer the questions that you see in Canvas. You can go back in and watch this video as many times as you need. But then tomorrow we are going to get into our first mechanism and you'll get to see how that functions and what it looks like using these pieces.